computer. Chevron 1 is holding. Chevron 1 is locked in place.
Power output at 23%.
When Stargate hit theaters in 1994, it looked like a polished science fiction adventure about ancient aliens and interstellar travel. But behind the finished film was a production full of chaos, improvisation, technical accidents, and creative arguments that almost stopped the movie from ever existing. What audiences saw as a clean mythic space epic was actually built from arguments in trailers, garage experiments with water tanks, and a production team constantly fighting both time and budget. Many of the strangest behind-the-scenes stories only surfaced later through interviews with the cast and crew, revealing how close the project came to collapse more than once. One of the earliest problems came before filming even properly stabilized: the Stargate itself. The massive circular portal prop was initially designed to look ancient and alien, but under studio lighting it failed completely. Early versions were painted dark, almost like industrial rubber, and instead of feeling like a mysterious gateway to another world, it resembled something closer to a truck tire mounted on a frame. Production designer decisions were quickly reversed overnight, and the entire structure was repainted in metallic tones. That single visual correction changed everything, giving the gate its shimmering, otherworldly identity that would later define the entire franchise. Casting the lead roles brought its own turbulence. Kurt Russell was not immediately convinced to join the project. Early script drafts circulating in Hollywood were reportedly weak enough that even his agents struggled to sell the concept. Russell initially passed more than once, not realizing that later revisions had significantly improved the story. The production team needed him badly, not only for performance reasons, but because international distributors placed heavy financial value on his name. Eventually, once he read a revised version, he agreed to join, and his involvement helped stabilize the entire financing structure of the film. Meanwhile, James Spader had a very different experience. Unlike Russell, Spader was openly critical of the material during production. In interviews, he suggested that the script felt awkward and uneven, yet he still accepted the role due to timing and career circumstances. His frustration occasionally spilled into production disputes, particularly over dialogue that he felt did not match his character's intelligence. Despite this tension, his performance became one of the film's defining elements.
Balancing Russell's military seriousness with a more skeptical, intellectual energy. The director, Roland Emmerich, along with co-writer Dean Devlin, were constantly under pressure to keep the production alive financially. The film was independently financed at an unusually high scale for the time, meaning that every delay translated directly into financial risk. Studios had initially rejected the project, believing science fiction was declining in popularity. That forced the producers to raise tens of millions independently, making Stargate one of the riskiest genre films of its era. One of the most famous production stories involves the Stargate's wormhole visual effect. Instead of being created entirely through digital software, it was partly born in a garage using extremely primitive materials. Crew members experimented with water tanks, food coloring, and household tools to simulate swirling dimensional energy. In one version of the experiment, water was mixed with powdered drink mix and stirred with a drill, creating unpredictable vortex patterns. These accidental shapes eventually inspired the final liquid travel effect that became iconic in the film and later television adaptations. Another major challenge came from the production's reliance on large-scale practical sets. The team constructed enormous Egyptian-inspired environments inside massive industrial spaces, turning empty structures into full military bases and alien temples. These sets were so large that hundreds of crew members could work simultaneously without interfering with each other. However, building on such a scale created constant logistical problems, including lighting inconsistencies, structural overheating, and the difficulty of maintaining continuity across different shooting days. Costume design added another layer of difficulty. The armored guards in the film, especially the Horus-like warriors, wore extremely heavy helmets that severely limited visibility. Actors often had to memorize movement paths and rely on assistants to guide them between takes. The glowing eye effect inside the helmets was achieved using simple battery-powered lighting systems hidden inside the structure. While visually impressive on screen, the practical reality was uncomfortable, with many performers enduring heat, restricted breathing, and long setup times just to film a single sequence. The desert filming locations created even harsher conditions. Large portions of the movie were shot in extreme heat where temperatures regularly exceeded safe working limits. Equipment frequently malfunctioned due to overheating, and water supplies had to be buried in sand just to remain cool enough to drink. The crew adjusted shooting schedules around sunrise and sunset, as midday filming became nearly impossible. Even in these conditions, extras and stunt performers were required to run across dunes in heavy costumes, creating physically exhausting shoot days that often ended in medical attention. One of the most unusual production hacks involved saving money on extras. Instead of hiring large crowds for distant background shots, the crew used stationary stand-ins, essentially cloth-draped shapes placed in the desert to simulate population density. From a distance, these figures blended seamlessly into wide shots, allowing the film to suggest massive civilizations without actually paying for hundreds of additional performers. This creative workaround became one of many examples of how the film achieved scale far beyond its budget. Post-production brought its own crisis. Near the end of editing, the studio requested dozens of additional visual effects shots, far more than originally planned. The effects team suddenly had less than a week to complete work that normally would have taken months. Using early digital compositing systems and intense overnight labor, they managed to finish all requested shots in time. This last-minute rush helped elevate the film's visual complexity, but it also pushed the crew to exhaustion. Perhaps the most debated element of the production was the portrayal of the villain RA. The character evolved significantly during filming and editing. Originally envisioned as a human antagonist, he was reimagined into something far more alien and supernatural after test screenings suggested audiences needed clearer motivation and spectacle. Costume designer work, combined with vocal distortion and digital enhancement, transformed him into an almost godlike figure, shaping the mythology that would later expand into television continuity. Despite all the chaos, Stargate was a financial success when it released in 1994. It debuted strongly at the box office and ultimately earned several times its production budget worldwide. The success surprised many industry insiders who had doubted whether independent large-scale science fiction could compete with studio-backed franchises. Instead, Stargate proved that ambitious storytelling combined with practical ingenuity could still deliver blockbuster results. Looking back, the strangest facts about Stargate are not just isolated anecdotes, but part of a larger pattern, a film built on improvisation. From garage-built visual effects to casting conflicts, from desert survival challenges to last-minute digital rescues, every stage of production required constant problem-solving. What makes the film memorable today is not just its story about ancient portals and alien gods, but the fact that the real production itself felt like a journey through a portal, unpredictable, unstable, and ultimately transformative for everyone involved.